Hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about creating a cut list. The objectives of today's lesson are to learn how to identify the material from the print, identifying the dimensions of the material, and calculating quantities, and then writing the cut list. First we need a plan or a print. In that plan or print we're going to need to identify the material being used. A couple of different situations may arise here. In some cases on the print, the dimensions of the material are clearly marked as far as the thickness. Sometimes you might have to do some math based upon dimensions that are on the print, and other times there may not be any indication whatsoever. This might mean that the author of the print left it up to interpretation. Perhaps you want to use a different material than what they have. So then you might have to make some adjustments on the dimensions for the material that you use. We also need to figure out how much of the material we need and then break it down into a cut list. So let's talk about some of the things that I was mentioning earlier about if it's clearly marked on the print or not. So I'm going to show you a couple different prints to begin with. Okay, so here we have a print that clearly marks the thickness of the material that we're going to use. So if you notice right here, it tells us that the thickness of this material is 3/4 of an inch. And we can tell by looking at this print, we can go ahead and assume that all this material being used is the same, so it's all 3/4 of an inch. We can also indicate here that this is 5.5 inches tall. So from your nominal exercise lesson, you understand that anything that's 3/4 of an inch thick by 5.5 inches tall would be a 1/6. If you look at this dimension here, it's showing us the outside to the outside is 7 inches. If we subtract the thickness of this side, which is 3/4, and the thickness of this side, which is 3/4, we end up with 5.5 again. So that's also telling us that our end pieces are 5.5 inches wide by 3/4 of an inch thick. So the end pieces as well are made out of the 1/6 material. Same with our bottom piece. Now we can tell here that our bottom piece goes in between the inside the ends, and it is from here inside our sides. We can see that as well. Or you can also tell from this print here that it's on the inside. So if it's on the inside of our ends, or inside of our sides, then we know it's 5.5 inches wide as well. So we can go ahead and assume that that's made out of 1/6 as well. Now here's a different print. This print does not indicate the thickness anywhere of the material. It does tell us here that this is 5.5 inches tall, so we can assume it's some type of 6-inch material. It does not give us the thickness anywhere on this print. We could assume it's half or 1/6, but we also have information here that we can use to decipher exactly what it is. So we have an inside measurement and we have an outside measurement. Now if we subtract our inside measurement from our outside measurement and then divide it by 2, we will get what the thickness of our material is. And the reason we divide it by 2 is our outside measurement includes the thickness of this end as well as the thickness of this end. So our total after we subtract will be those two thicknesses. So we divide them by 2 to find out what it is. So here we have an outside measurement of 2 foot 4 3/8 inches. 2 foot being 24 inches plus our 4 inches is 28 3/8 inches. Our inside measurement is 2 foot 2 7/8 inches. 2 foot being 24 inches plus 2 is 26 7/8. So if we subtract our 26 7/8 from our 28 3/8, we have 1.5 left over. We take our 1.5, we divide it by 2, and we end up with 3/4. 3/4 of an inch thick is a 1/, and this tells us it's 5.5. So we're using 1/6 material for this print as well. In some situations, you will not have any of this, so you will have to decide what material you're going to use. And if your material is thicker than 3/4, then you'll have to take that into consideration with your dimensions if you want to keep your outside dimensions the same. Okay, moving along. So now we know what material we're going to use. We're going to go ahead and continue to use this print for an example. Well, now we know what material we're going to use. We're going to be using 1x6. Now what we need to do is find out how much total length we need. So we have two sides that are 16 inches long. We have two ends. Our ends are 9 inches tall. And then we have our bottom, which fits on the inside. So we're going to take 16, subtract 3/4, and subtract 3/4, which would be 1.5 inches, which leaves us 14.5 inches. We add all that together, and we have 64.5 total inches needed. We don't want to just get a 64.5 inch board, because when we cut it down, we're going to lose material. So we're going to get something bigger. 60 inches in 5 foot. So we're just going to go ahead and get a 6 foot piece of 1x6, and that'll be enough material to cut our cut list. So now we have a 6 foot piece of 1x. We're going to go ahead and create a cut list. How many pieces do we need? Well, we have our sides. There's two sides, there's two ends, and there's one bottom. And we really do need to indicate which is which. So we know our ends are 9 inches. So let's go ahead and label those ends. Our sides are 16. Let's label those sides. And then our bottom is 14.5. It is very important to label everything. So a good cut list will have 4 columns. Your first column will indicate what the piece is. Second column will indicate how many pieces. The third column will indicate the type of material, 1x6. And then the final column will show us what the size is. So our ends, there are 2 of them made out of 1x6 that are 9 inches tall. Our sides, there are 2 of them made from 1x6 at 16 inches long. And then our bottom is 1 piece of 1x6 at 14.5 inches. And that is how we create a cut list. Thanks for watching.